Oh, give it up for Todd Terry.
Yeah. Thank you.
I secretly recorded that at Leo last night.
That's good. That's good.
So I can't remember the last time I interviewed you. It was a long time ago. So I want to kind of refresh myself. But tell me where you grew up and how you got into this crazy world. What were your early musical experiences?
Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in a place, Brighton Beach. It's like it was a mixture of all types of cultures: Puerto Rican, Spanish, Filipino, Italian, Jewish. So I picked up a lot of lingo from everybody, you know.
What music was playing in your house?
Back in the days, my sister used to play like funk and soul, like Roy Ayers and stuff like that. So as soon as she went to work, I would like sneak in the room so I could put on music on her turntable and be dancing and stuff, whatever. But that was the period. It was like a funk and soul thing, and then later I got into like DJing.
And hip hop was your first real kind of cultural hookup.
Yeah, what happened was a friend of mine's, a DJ I know from back in the days, they used to do this bazaar in Brighton Beach, and he used to play music. And I went up there and I was like, oh, this is cool, you play music? And he was like, you know, mixing back then was like they let the record in and mix the other one in and whatever. So I said, well, I want to learn how to do this, you know? And then it was MCing and stuff like that. I used to be the worst rapper ever. But, you know, it was like, back then, it was like a record was playing. He was just like, to the beat, y'all, and you don't stop. Keep on, you know.
Sound pretty good to me.
Yeah, just hype up the crowd. That's what you used to do. So that's how I got into kind of breakbeat type of mixing, where you just cut a record like Cerrone or James Brown, Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic. You just cut the record back and forth for like hours.
You realized you had to have 2 copies of everything.
Yeah, 2 copies, you know, steal one by one.
Okay.
That's how. Let me tell you how you do it. You go to the record shop, right? So you see the record there, right? And while the guy's not looking, you take the other record out and put it in the same cover.
And they never checked.
Yeah, they never checked. And you bring it to the guy. He's like, yeah, $2.99.
I've been around you guys my whole life. No one ever told me that before. I used to go around Timmy Regisford's house wondering why he was going to ruin the records having 2 copies in one sleeve.
Gotta have 2 copies.
That was right. So how did that get into beat making? Because you became a bit of a name on the scene as a kind of freestyle beat maker, producer.
The record side of it, like I used to go to this club called Roseland. That was on 52nd Street in Manhattan, and records were playing, and I was just like getting ideas, and I was already starting to DJ, and I was like, what about that part right there? What about if it was able to keep on going? So that would be like, you know, a loop or a drum loop or something like that, and that's how I got into, I wanted to make that beat over and over again.
And in the early days, like archaic, like low budget equipment, how were you doing that? Was it on a cassette or on a reel-to-reel?
Oh, it was the horrible thing. I used to take a cassette and try to catch it on beat, record it on beat, and then finally I brought my first drum machine, which was a Roland DR55. So when I was DJing, I used to throw that drum machine in there, and it surprised everybody. It's like, yo, that's a beat you made? And I just kept on playing the beat over and over all night, driving people crazy. But then I brought more equipment as I was working. I used to work in a supermarket, and just like I just couldn't wait to get out and go buy equipment. That was like the whole thing. I could go to work, can't wait to get out, go spend all my money on equipment. So it's crazy.
And you're there then in the early, kind of first phase, second phase of hip hop. That was your destiny, that as you thought at that time. But how did you end up swerving, change your direction, and get into making club records?
I was working with like a lot of rap guys and stuff like that. We was doing beats and rapping and all that type of stuff. And then one of my friends, this guy named Trax, came to my house, and he's like, you know, he was a club guy. He used to always go to clubs, you know, Northmore, Broadway 96, 1018, all that type of stuff. He comes into the house, and he says, yo, we gotta make a beat like this, you gotta make a beat like this. And he puts on the cassette, and I'm listening to it, and it was like, believe it or not, it was Marshall Jefferson and Kevin Saunderson, Derek May, it was all those records, Juan Atkins and stuff like that. I'm listening to it, I'm like, man, this is like the same beat. I could do this, like, what the hell? And he was just like, yo, do a beat. Yo, we'll come back in a couple of days. I'll do a beat like this, you know. And I was like, all right, cool. So he came back like a couple of days, and I did like this track. And that track was like, I was kind of making fun of it. It was like Party People at the time. And he comes in the house, and he's listening to it, and he's standing there, and he's listening to it, and he goes, yo, this is the shit. He starts dancing around like, yo, this is good. You got to do this. You got to keep on doing tracks like this. And I was like, nah, I'll do a couple of them.
How did you, so you made Party People, you didn't realize who you were sampling at the time.
I didn't know.
So how do you go at that point and find out whether it's going to work? Did you go to a club, a different club that you would have gone to, or did you take it to a label? Or?
Well, I had some freestyle records out back in the day. So what happens was after, when he brought the house stuff in there, I was just like, I didn't really know how to do it, So what I did was I showed it to a friend of mine, this guy, Manny Garcia, and he says, yo, you should take this to some labels that do this type of style of music. So I ended up in Warlock Records, and I ended up in Fourth Floor Records, and, I played them the tracks, and it was like, yo, yeah, we want this type of stuff, blah, 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 It's like I had this old joke that, I actually did a record for a bucket of chicken because it was like kind of true. It was like, the guy was like, yo, we don't have like no advance or whatever, but we'll take you out to eat. So it was like, I said, come on.
Did that work?
Kind of worked. Yeah, I was like, no, you're giving me some money. We're going to eat and you're going to give me some money.
But you were, I remember talking to Armand Van Helden because I started working with him kind of, a little bit later, but, and then meeting Kenny Dope. You were all quite serious hip-hop guys, though, so this was almost like change, or just to allow us to keep making the hip-hop records. Yeah,
it was more we wanted to be the hip-hoppers, but it was just like the house thing worked, but except for Kenny had a lot of success with some hip-hop tracks with certain people and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's just like I just started getting deals everywhere, so I just kept that momentum going, because I had to get out my mama's house, so I had to make it happen.
You're also living in New York at an incredible time for kind of New York clubbing history as well. Were you aware of like Paradise Garage and like the Tunnel and play? Would you go and see your records get played down there?
I went to the Garage. My friend Trax, it was me, him, and Mike Delgado. We went to Garage and we was like, yo, you gotta go in this club. This is where they play all this type of shit. And I'm like, all right, dope. Go there, go up to the door. There's like denied. I was like, what? What the hell? Like what? We got money. We going to go in. He's like, no, go to the side. So like a week later, we got into the Garage, and we was just like standing there, it's like mesmerized because it was.
You would have looked like an early b-boy. Did they?
Yeah, yeah. I was like in the wrong. Yeah. I went in there all hood, looking at everybody like, yo, what you looking at, son? Like stuff like that.
They probably thought you were there to sell them something.
To rob somebody. I was gonna rob one of them. And then we was just like in there, and I was like listening to the music, and then I forgot who was playing first. I think it was Tony Smith or somebody. Then Larry came on, and he like started it off with "Love Is a Message," and I knew that record. I was like, oh shit, he's playing "Love Is a Message." Like, this dude is dope. And then he starts throwing on all this other shit. I'm like, oh shit, I get it. Like the way he's mixing it and the blends and the musical essence of what he was doing. I was, all right, I get it.
And is that where you got turned on more to kind of German, like, and European, Italian disco and stuff like that?
Yeah, I started to figure it out then. That was like the wake-up call. It was actually the Garage, and then I went to this other club called Northmore. In Northmore, they was playing hip-hop, reggae, house, freeze. They played everything. So, that's why I got into a little bit of everything, and I mixed it into my music.
So when you actually started sampling, because that was such a big part of your game, you kind of almost wrote the book on it. You didn't really realize who you were sampling. But first, just tell us, like, because obviously everything's so simple now, but how did you make those records sound like that?
I didn't have much. I had some guitar amp board with like 8 tracks. I had RZ1 Casio drum machine, and I had a SD2000 Korg sampler. So I only had like a little bit of sample. It was like da 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 da, and that's it. So I would sample stuff, or I was sampling it really fast, and I would slow it down so I could get more out of the sample. So I did that a lot, and I would trigger the sample with one of the outputs from the drum machine.
But one of the reasons you were saying backstage it's also riffy is because that's all you had to.
I had to fill up the space.
So you accidentally
stumbled. Yeah, actually, I was like, because I only had that much space.
You also told me when you met Daft Punk years later, and they were trying to copy what you did.
Yeah, he was like,
and they were like trying to put some science to actually.
He bumped into me. He says, "You know that whole album I ripped you off." I was like, "Yeah, I heard. It's cool."
And what about the attitude to sampling then? Because you were taking these samples. I read somewhere because it wasn't Run DMC or it wasn't Big Daddy Kane. You weren't that bothered. You didn't know where it came from. And obviously you were then selling records with at a time when nobody was clearing samples, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to bring some of these records in. They didn't ask me about samples or nothing, but later we found out.
I was going to say, what happened when you bumped into someone for the first time?
Oh, well, Marshall Jefferson and Kevin Saunderson. I was in some club or some venue or something like that, and Kevin comes up to me and says, "Hey, man, you Todd Terry?" I was like, "Hey," he says, "Yo, you sampled my record." I was like, "Yo, dude, not for nothing. I really didn't know. I got the shit from a cassette, and I just took all the parts and made the thing. I found out about you guys later. You know, it was no disrespect. It's just back in the days, that's what we was just kind of doing, sampling anything and putting it together and putting records out. You know, I told him, I tried to change it up a little bit. Like, I didn't want to keep it the same as what you had, but then later we became good friends, me, Marshall, and everybody, because I explained it to them. It's just I was just a kid being an asshole and just fucking didn't give a fuck and sampling shit. Can I curse?
You can. It's okay. And now, of course, well, over your career, then you become the person that sampled.
Yeah, I was the bad guy. No, really, I wasn't one of the first bad guys. I mean, the first guy to go to court for sampling was Biz Markie, for sampling some record in LL Cool J. Like, when I saw that happen, then I was like, okay. So, but I always try to make the sample different than the record. I always try to change it around or make it do different things, not just a loop. So I used to get mad when people used to just loop the whole entire record and not do something a little funky to it, So I was trying to do it as an art form. And a lot of hip-hop guys noticed that, like DJ Premier, he says, "Yo, I got a lot of my records from the style, the way you chopped everything up." I thought that was making it more music,
When did you realize that it was going to all be about house music now for you? Because you kind of define house music. When did you kind of give up on hip hop, or are you still? I think if I talk to Armand here, who's sitting here today, he'd say he still want to make that hip hop album.
I still want to make a hip hop album. I want to rap on it. I want to wear my chain.
Yeah.
Like,
Have you given up on that yet? I don't think you have you?
You're going to hear the old man rapping album. That's going to be me and shit. But what happened was, I don't know. It's like, if I could get back to that, that'll be really cool.
And you kind of, defined the start of house music in New York City while everyone else was up in Chicago. What is house music today for you? Do you think the spirit's still alive and kicking?
I think we got it back. I think that at a certain point, 10 years ago, 8 or 10 years ago, I think that, no offense to the EDM shit, but what happens is, I think that took away from house. And I think that I'm glad that we're back to being funky and dancing again. I think a lot of the fist pumping shit and waiting for a good drum roll was a little weird for me. I'm used to going to a club and we would dance. We would just like be partying and having a good time. So I think some of those records took away that essence of what me, you, funk, soul, we grew up in. So, hopefully we're bringing it back. I think we need some records on radio, some of these house records or some of these type of, good songs on radio. I think that's what's going to carry us through, is the song.
And do you think, young musicians, producers today, where the kind of technology in the box of the laptop's so simple, are there some lessons to still be learned from back in the day? We were talking about, maybe people learning to play a bit. It's interesting that a lot of your editing was like you were a razor blade and a pencil.
I mean. Is that essence going to ever be there? I don't know. I think the kids now are too lazy, or they got a short attention span. You're not going to get that same culture of like really creating something now. Now it's like, they type in this, they type in that, they change it around, the record's done, in a computer. So it's almost like I would like to take away everybody's computer, and so we could be better, as far as music.
Okay. Jumping around a little bit here, but I also want to talk to you about, you came up with some incredible names back in the day. You did really hit a role, and you must have been, as much time you must have been spent in the studio visiting all these labels, shopping deals. Is that the reason there were so many names, and you didn't just like go, no, I'm going to make Todd Terry, Todd the God, as you became known,
right.
the biggest name of all. You went CLS, Royal House, my favorite, Orange Lemon. You had a big thing about gypsies.
Gypsies.
You ever met a gypsy?
Yeah, I met him.
Like, there's a lot of them over here, actually. So.
Gypsies in here right now. Yeah. No, what happened was that back then I was signed. So Todd Terry Project was signed to Sleeping Bag. So I couldn't do another Todd Terry project on another label. So what I did is I made up names produced by me to put all these records out. And I always use these names that was like, I always see myself being some rock and roll guy with a fucking guitar. Like, it's so stupid in my head, you know? So what happens, you know, Swan Lake, I'm this rock and roll group called Swan Lake. Black Ride, I'm this rock and roll group called Black Ride. It was silly in my head, but it kind of worked because I got a chance to get all these records out, you know? So that was the gimmick to all those names. But now, you know, it's just all me.
I'm still, you know, I still, I think it was people sad that, you know, where's the next Orange Lemon record? You know, like,
no, I'll do it again for you. I'll do it again.
Right.
No problem.
I couldn't sit here on stage without talking to you about the Jungle Brothers.
Yes.
Everyone knows that record, seminal record, massive part of your life. But I kind of reminded myself today that it actually came out on a rap album. It came out on a rap album as the last track.
Yep.
So just tell us how that happened, and you know, did they steal your record, or were you part of the process?
No, part of the whole thing. This was what happened. We used to hang out in this house. This guy named Tony D. He was the owner of Idlers, along with me and this other guy named Oswald Elliott. And we had all the rappers were there because I was doing undercover tracks for a lot of the rap groups, such as, you know, Houdini and Dougie Fresh, Slick Rick. I did a lot of those tracks, Inspector Gadget and stuff like that. I did a lot of those melodies and beats. So they used to come there to get beats. So Jungle Brothers had Jim Brownski, and I Know You Like It Like That, and all that stuff, Straight Out the Jungle and stuff like that. So Tony came up, he was really his idea. He came up with, yo, they should do something on like a house track. And I said, man, I don't know, man, that's not keeping it hip hop, you know, because we had this divide in a little way, you know. So I chopped up the track, gave it to them. Next day, they had the vocals done. Like, the record was done the next day, like, you know, within like 3 hours. And we're just standing there listening to it. Says, yeah, I think people will like this. You know, it's happy. You know, people can jump up and down to it in the clubs. I think it's gonna work. And next thing we put it out, it was on radio like in 3 weeks.
Was it divisive in the hip hop community that they'd done a house record? Did they get some stick for it?
No, I think that, you know, the black crowds...
you don't see it now.
Really. No, this is what it is. The black crowds back in the days, they wanted something back, you know, that was a little divisive. Like, they wanted something that was clubby, and they wanted to hear Run DMC. Like, you know, they wanted to go back and forth with it. So that record just kind of came in as the perfect party record for the hip-hop crowd. And it was the perfect party record for the house crowd or the garage or whatever it was. I mean, if the garage was closed by then, but it was like, it was in that essence to make it work for everybody.
Okay. I was thinking also about some of the lessons maybe that are, you know, relevant today to what happened to you, because there you are in your absolute prime. You got a Todd Terry project with one of the bigger indie labels in Sleeping Bag, and then you got records going out everywhere. It's a bit like a prolific producer today having loads of tracks on different labels in Beatport. But you're doing pretty well. You start to dabble with the major label system. You ended up on Zomba, I think, famously, and then things really started to become unglued. Just tell us about that experience.
The worst deal of my life. See, the problem with publishing, I didn't know about that shit. I just, you know, I was getting my money from just the advances, and I was happy to drive in a Benz and wear my chain and pop shit that I was the biggest shit in the world. So I didn't really care about a lot of the other things. So I had to learn publishing. So when Zomba came in there and they said, oh, we're going to give you $200,000 and stuff like that, I went there to get the check, not thinking that it was going to ruin me, you know. So I go there, sign the contract, get all the money, having a good time. Then I'm going to labels to put out more records, you know, because now I want to make more money, and I couldn't.
Okay.
Because it had to be put out. They had to own it.
So it had to come out on Jive or something.
It either had to come out on Jive, or they had to, you know, say that it was okay. I had to get agreement from them, you know. and it was just like major problems. Then I was like angry, so I used to go up to Jive and be like, yo, I want to speak to David Renzer, where the fuck he's at? He's ruining my fucking life. And I'm just like banging on the window, and it's just going crazy because I couldn't make no more money. You know, like it was just like it put a halt. So then I had to change my publishing name and my records names. So I have a lot of records out there that you don't know it's me. It's like I just did it under
the
the
record
table.
you made with them also you had a problem because they never thought it was commercial enough, or
Yeah, they never put out. I have an album, 2 albums with Jive that just sat on the shelf.
right. And in the meantime, I remember you had other people out there starting to sound like you, and you had a beef with like Frankie Bones.
He was being a dick. So no, some dudes I think that they
Do you
went
ever
at
make
me.
it up with him?
No, I mean we cool now. You know, I don't feel like smacking him or nothing. But this is the problem. It's like when you're at a hiatus, you know, people will come out and they'll pop shit. But Frankie Bones, the problem that I had with him is that he would pop shit, but he would sound like me. So it's like you're not making no sense. You know, like you're popping a lot of shit, but that's you take.
Was he taking advantage of the fact there was a void that you couldn't release your music?
I don't know what the fuck was his problem. I wasn't like paying attention to him. I think that was like a neighborhood thing, believe it or not, because I was from Brighton Beach, Coney Island, and they was from McDonald Avenue. Right. So that's kind of like a beef in a weird way. It's like, oh fuck them, you know? Yeah, Todd Terry, yeah, he thinks he's big because he runs Brighton Beach and all this shit, and like, so that came into a little bit of the conflict, but I really didn't pay it no mind, you know.
So when you went in Vinyl Mania or something at the record store, did you just go and take his records and like put them at the back?
No, Vinyl Mania was backing me up. They said, yo, listen to this bullshit. We're not selling this shit. And they was doing it, throwing it others. They was backing me up. Charlie and them was like, we're not gonna let him, you take care of us and everything like that. I was like, good, man, because it's just like bullshit. But you know, there was a lot of other guys that would just straight sample the records and stuff like that. I had beef with Tyree.
Right.
You know, he was like, oh, yeah, you stole my vocal. I said, I didn't steal your fucking vocal. What are you talking about? Oh, that little sample. He went, I said, that's your fucking vocal? You're beefing with me over
Right.
So we got into some shit with that. But later I saw him and it was all cool. But, you know, it's just, you know, you're going to have people that want to try it or pop shit. But until they see me, then they're like, oh, yo, man, I really like your shit. I said, you popping a lot of shit, you little bitch ass. But that's just me.
Right. Oh, yeah, I think
I'm
one
a happy
of the good.
guy. I'm happy.
I think one of the good
don't
things.
get it twisted.
I think one of the good things that came out of you being kind of tied up then with Zombos, the remixes started out of necessity almost for you to get paid, but then your whole remixing career seemed to explode. You were the go-to guy for a good few years, and still to this day, to be fair. But remixing was a whole different thing back then. The budgets were bigger. You were hiring massive studios. Tell us a bit about that time.
I mean, it was just the glam of it. You know, it was $20,000 a remix and stuff like that. So you was able to go to studio and waste time. I mean, half of the time I was drunk and fucked up. I didn't really know what the fuck was going on. But
But you were doing them, right?
I was doing them.
You didn't have other people doing them, did you?
I didn't let the engineer do it. I would come in there. I would actually do it, right. then get drunk or whatever. But okay. No, the truth to the matter was that. I mean, remixing it was a plus and it was a minus. I'll tell you why. Because when you remix a record, you have to please yourself, the label, and the artist. And it's a timing thing. They want the shit in 2 days. It's like, dude, I'm trying to put it together and like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then you got A&R people that are fucking idiots, you know, blatantly, you know. I'll tell you a quick story. I had this guy in Arista Records. I was doing the Annie Lennox record, and I'm mixing the record, whatever. He comes in there, and he's like, oh, yeah, that's good, that's good, that's good. And then like a part came up, like this string part came up. And he goes, ooh, 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 what's that right there? Ooh, 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 right there. I said, what are you talking about? That part right there. I said, the strings? And he goes, yeah, that sound. I said, you don't know what the fuck strings are? Like, he didn't know what music was. He kind of just like heard something he liked, and he was the head of fucking Arista.
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
Good qualifications. What I liked about you also did, you always seemed to work out a personal relationship with the act, right? You said you would want to get on the phone with them and talk to people directly. Janet Jackson, you mentioned.
Janet Jackson, David Bowie. Like, I got on the phone with Janet, and I was kind of like, she was talking to me how she wanted this certain vocal part, and she's like, what do you think? I said, all right, well, I could put that up, louder at the end, but then it takes away from what the beginning is, blah, blah, blah. So we talked about that stuff, but she was like driving around, and I was like, oh shit, you drive? And she says, yeah, I'm driving. I said, damn, you fucking rich. Why are you driving? So she's like all confused and stuff like that. But no, Janet was mad cool. David Bowie was mad cool. Mick Jagger, that shit was fucked up. Because I was screaming on the phone, and he was the manager was like, yeah, just talk real loud. He can't hear you. I was like, what the fuck is this? Yo, Mick, yo, what the fuck, man? What's going on? And I'm screaming on the phone, and the manager's like, oh yeah, he heard you. He said that he's gonna call you back, and fucking Mick Jagger.
Did any of them refuse the remixes, send you back? Or because almost getting in production with them when you're having those.
David Bowie, I had it out with David Bowie. So Bowie, I sent in the track, whatever, he hits me back, oh, this is a disgrace, da-da-da-da. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? I didn't do nothing. Like, I kind of just, because I was into the remixing thing where I would just change a bass line and a beat. I didn't change your fucking music. I didn't change your arrangement. I kind of kept it, the song structure, and then my dubs were all types of crazy shit. So what happened was they sent him the dub first. So he's like, what the fuck, you taking my vocals and you fucking it all up? I said, yo, Dave, chill. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then we sent him back the regular version, and he like kind of accepted it. Sting was a little problem too. Sting was like, why the drums so hard? I was like, have you heard what the fuck I do, son? Like, it's like the kids want the shit to be crazy. They don't want your fucking regular fucking string attachment and guitars to the shit. They want to hear just like vocals and hard beat. And I'm like this with artists. I don't really give a fuck if it was president. Well, we're not gonna talk about that fucking guy. But if I don't care who it is. I'm gonna talk to you like I'm your brother or I'm the kid that you hang out with.
Probably your most famous remix is Everything But the Girl. How did that one come about?
That was cool. No, that was good. I got on the phone.
And they hadn't had a hit by then. That was interesting.
Yeah, but they didn't like that mix.
They didn't like that mix, no. Okay.
So it was a little conflict there. But after a while, I guess it came out, and then, Now, I don't think it was so much Tracy. I think Ben, had his little discrepancies about what the hell I did or whatever.
Well, I guess you were doing what he did. So, to a certain extent.
I mean, when you're like, look, he's a producer, so he produces something a certain way. When somebody like me comes in there and rips it all apart, I could understand the theory of that. I probably wouldn't want to like it either, but, it worked. And, I guess they gave me respect later for it, but, was there ever, that was so massive, was there ever pressure, did anybody like from either side try and get you back together at any point to do something we did
else?
a couple more records, but there was a little problem again. Right. So we did the record wrong, and I like reconstructed it and played it, and he asked me a question about why do I take my bass lines down and back up? Like, why do I go do? Like, why do I do that? And I was like, well, because that kind of makes you funky when you dance. He's like, oh, is there any way you could take that out and just leave it straight? I said, then if I leave it straight, then I'm like you. There's more to that, but read the book.
Conscious. And you're still here. You're still here as active and as lively and as engaged as ever.
So
what's taking a title from one of your earlier records? What's a day in the life of Todd Terry like these days?
I was robbing the Beatles. See, I always wanted to make records where I stole like rock and roll names or rock and roll essence. So, A Day in Life, all that stuff, Orange Lemon. It's like I'm stealing from like old rock groups,
Yeah, but what's a day in the life like for you now? That's what I'm saying.
I think that's one of my better records, hands down. Like if you had to really pick something that was interesting, what I did, and you couldn't knock me for it. You can't knock me for A Day in a Life. Like, if you hated me, didn't care about anything I did, you listened to A Day in Life, you can't give me respect for that,
I was going to ask you your favorite record, so there you answered it.
That's definitely one of them. Between that, Bango, and Can You Party, I think those put a little statement.
I mean, I remember you used to get a lot of stick as well for playing. I mean, it sounds funny now, but for playing your own records, because like DJs that, you know, most of the EDM world, especially, most will play their own records all night. I think back in the day, you playing your own records actually confused people.
Yeah,
It's like, why aren't you playing other people's records?
No, I was playing other people's records, but you know, like I said, you're always gonna have a hater nation somewhere in the crowd. Like, oh look, all he does is play all his own records, and you know. And after a while, I took it to the next level, and then I really was playing my own records, you know, because then I felt as though like, okay, I'm DJ, I'm giving you really me now. So this is more than a DJ thing. This is a show. You know, I'm showcasing all this music, this new music, remixes and everything like that. So now you're getting something different that the other guy can't give you.
And you're still here. You're still in Ibiza as much as ever. It sounds like you're here more this year. What keeps you inspired, locked in, like engaged, excited?
I think sometimes these kids, they come up to me, they go, yo, man, you know, I just heard this record from you. I really like your work and stuff like that. Knowing that, you know, 20-year-old kids are like into your shit, you know, that keeps a vibe going in my head. So now I just feel elevated by that, and that keeps me going.
I guess you were almost loved by the UK before you were loved by. I mean, you were always loved in New York, but by the rest of America, and you still come over here now. So what are you doing this summer in Ibiza?
I just did Leo yesterday. I'm gonna do High the whole summer. Glitterbox is the number one shit out here. Face it. It really is. You know, because
Simon Dunmore just call you. He must have
I know.
texted
I got money in my pocket from Simon. I got to throw some plugs. Yeah. No, it's really music. I mean, somewhere along the line, we're never going to be able to knock music. Like, you know, how turn it around, back and forth, up and down. It's music, so that's what's good. You know, I'm doing Defected in the House, Pasha. You know, I'm doing all the clubs, but, you know, I'm just kind of sticking to my old school house and tracks that you know, and, you know, just keep that vibe going. I think that's the vibe that's needed.
And you still making as much music as you used to?
Still making tracks out on In-House, you know, Terminator Freeze, still out there going for it, still doing remixes and stuff like that. So, you know, still there.
Okay. We've got a couple of minutes. Any questions for Todd the God? One over there. Get a microphone.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ryan. I'm from Estonia, and I'm a DJ, producer. And my question is, how do you usually choose your tracks for playing out for the real crowd?
I just look for the energy. You know, I kind of like, you know, I'm trying to find the same energy as what I make. If it has that same type of driving drum pattern and stuff like that, and it comes into vocals, back into drum padding, I'm just trying to find that arrangement, keep the crowd going.
Another question down here.
Hey, hi Todd. My question was just around a lot of the topics that have been under discussion today about health and wellness within the industry, and as somebody who's obviously been on top of your game for a long time and you've had a sustained career, what your experiences around those areas have been, and is there anything that you do on a daily basis that you see as an important part of keeping yourself well, either physically, mentally, emotionally? Is there anything that you have to do every day, or things that you definitely say no to that you think have had an impact on your ability to be able to still be at the top of your game now after all these years?
I mean, there's no real method to my madness, I guess. You want to say, I try to eat right, but I love a fucking hamburger all the time. Try not to drink too much. You try. Well, I never did like cocaine and hard drugs, so I'm good with that. I think that's what it. Don't do cocaine.
That probably helped.
Don't do that and all those pills and all that shit. Stick to like drinking or something. Hennessy.
When we were watching Tom's presentation about sleep, he just leant over my shoulder and he said to me, "I guess it's too late for us to with that shit." It's never too late.
You know, his sleeping thing was interesting. I mean, good sleep is good, but you see the bags under my fucking eyes. Like, I can't sleep but so much, you know. You get your jet lag, you get up, you got to go do this. You're doing the interviews, you're doing the clubs. It's just hard to maintain it. You got family, you got kids, you got, you know, it's hard to, you just go for it. I don't have the remedy. If I had the remedy, I'd probably be doing a lot more better, but it's hard to maintain, you know, this lifestyle.
Is Brooklyn still home, by the way?
Brooklyn in the house.
So I was just there. Any other questions for Todd? One down the front here.
It's not going to be a crazy one, Todd.
Please, Tommy. Please, Tommy. Control yourself. Control
All right.
yourself.
First international gig. I know, like David were some of the first, you know, super traveling DJs, superstar DJ type of thing. How was your first international gig? Where was it, and how did it go down?
Good question, Tommy. Yo, so the first gig was at the WAG, London.
Oh, wow.
And it was the
I used to
Sleeping
play
Bag Tour. So it was me, Just Ice, Mantronics, Tila Rock, Nice and Smooth. It was all of us together. Wow. It was fucking retarded. Like, I mean, fights, you name it, bitches, everything. You name it. It was, you know, it was fucked up. It was like, I told him, I said, I'm not doing this again with all of them. Like, it was too much.
That's basically a hip-hop gig then.
Yeah, it was like hip-hop, and I was the house guy. But no, I was also Tila Rock's DJ as well. So at that time, it's like he didn't have a DJ. He says, yo, just throw these records on for me and cut it back and forth, because I knew the breakbeat shit. So I would just cut back and forth these breaks while he rhymes. So it was just like, I can remember it clearly today. It was just mayhem.
And you played Ministry of Sound right at the beginning as well.
Yeah, that was probably the next couple of gigs I did. Ministry of Sound, me, Justin Berkman, when Lynn Cosgrove was there. And we kind of started that whole movement.
I mean, Justin was trying to recreate the Paradise Garage when
yeah,
he put that
just
together,
was all garage, but he wanted to have reggae. Like his whole thing was like, I want to play reggae. I'm going to play reggae before you get on.
Like Bobby Condas.
Yeah, he was turned into this whole reggae thing. I said, dude, you don't got no dreads. Like, peace out. But it was funny shit. Like, Justin was really out of his fucking mind.
And what do you make of playing in the UK for the first time? The club
WAG,
like that.
Yeah, the WAG was great. You had four different floors with 4 different types of music. So we was just running around and stuff like that. It was just like, it was, you know, going to like a foreign country first time, and I was like, I don't know, 20 years old, 19, 20. It blew my mind, man. You know, it's like a jet lag. I didn't know what the fuck that felt like. I was like, why I feel so fucked up and weird, and just DJing and people talking and drinks, and like, oh, it's fucking crazy, man.
It's the start of it all.
Yeah, it's the start.
And what about the first time you came here? What did you make of that? If you thought London was crazy.
Oh, first time I came, I didn't want to come here. This is what happened. I played the Ministry of Sound, and I forgot who was working for Ministry of Sound. This girl named Lucy. And she was like, oh, you got to go play Ibiza, blah, blah. And she was banging on the door because I was late for the flight and stuff like that. And she was like, oh, yo, come on, we got to go. I said, I'm tired. I don't want to fucking go. She says, it's Ibiza. You have to go. It's the greatest thing ever. And she was like popping all this shit to me. And I was like, yo, I'm tired. I'll go tomorrow. She says, no, but the gig's tonight. You can't go to the... I said, oh, man. As I got up, and I was like really hesitant on going. Got here. I got off the plane, straight to the club. Straight to the club, smelling like fucking liquor and pee. Straight to the fucking club. Get there.
Brought this homeless guy.
Yeah, like a homeless, like, oh, it's Todd Terry. He looks homeless. My shirt's all dirty. I got lipstick on the side of my shirt.
That must have been Pasha then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said it wasn't passion, but whatever.
Right, okay.
But and got there, DJ'd. It was great party and everything like that. And I just like fell out for like 2 days. But the first experience was just like, I didn't know what the fuck.
You came dressed better the next time.
I worked on it. I had to work on it.
I think that's it. I think we're going to be out of time. Any more questions? One quick one here.
Hi, Todd.
Oh, you're the one who was getting your ears clean?
I was the one with
Did
the
they
weird
get that
thing.
shit out? No?
I got it all out. I wanted to ask you, what motivation would you give for the younger generation or younger DJs under us right now?
I mean, it's tough out there, man. You know, I still say to a lot of DJs, the best way to get out there, you got to make tracks. but there's so many tracks out, you know, it's hard to compete. You got to be a beast. There's no other way, and you got to find a different sound and a different vein to be in. Because if you sound just like the other guy, I don't know how that's going to work for you. But it's a tough time. I think it was easier when me and Tong had a box of records and we went to a record store, you know, and sold records like that. That was great. Now it's like you put out a record, it's gone. It's like all they need is one time to hear it, and you know, it's tough. It's a tough time now. So many people into it, you know. You got to watch it out there, you know. It's I can't give you a good advice on that. It's like just keep going. Just do the best you could.
Thank you.
Got to be good. Okay. I think that was great. Great energy. Great. Almost the end of the day. But Terry, thank you.
Thank you.